The Great Hall of the Galactic Council was bigger than most cities. Thousands of beings from across the galaxy sat in floating chairs that moved through the air like silent birds. The walls were made of crystal that showed the stars outside. Today, those stars seemed to watch as the council made a decision that would change everything. Council Prime Jexstar raised his forearms for silence. His blue skin glowed softly in the light. "We are here to decide if humans should join our Federation," he said. His voice echoed through the hall. Most of the aliens in the room looked bored. Humans were new to space travel. They had only learned to travel between stars 50 years ago. Two beings who had been flying through space for thousands of years. Humans seemed like children playing with toys. Ambassador Taemin sat in the human section. He was nervous but tried not to show it. Next to him, Captain Soyoung kept her face. Calm, she had fought in battles, but this felt more dangerous than any war. "The humans have asked to join us," Jexstar continued. "They offer their friendship and their help, but we must ask ourselves, what can such a young race give us?" Many aliens made sounds of agreement. The snake-like Velthari hissed. The rock-like Granite Collective made grinding noises. The floating energy beings called Lumina flickered with what might have been laughter. "They are primitives," said Counselor Hexaval from the Zeth Empire. His crystal body rang like a bell when he spoke. "They still fight wars with metal bullets and chemical explosives. They have not learned peace like we have. Their ships are slow and ugly," added General Mortex from the Saurian Empire. His reptile face showed disgust. "They build everything like they expect it to break." Ambassador Taemin started to stand up, but Captain Soyoung put a hand on his arm. "Wait," she whispered, "let them talk first." The discussion went on for an hour. Every species seemed to have something bad to say about humans. They were too violent, too unpredictable, too young, too different. Then a voice spoke from the back of the hall. "You are all fools." Every head turned. A figure walked slowly down the center aisle. He was tall, even for a Saurian. His green scales were covered with old scars. One of his eyes was gone, replaced by a metal implant. His left arm ended at the elbow, and a mechanical hand moved with small clicking sounds. "Kale Vorthok," Jexstar said with surprise. "You are not expected to speak today." Kale limped to the center of the hall. His good eye looked around at all the aliens staring at him. "I know these humans," he said. "I fought them." The hall became very quiet. Everyone knew about the border skirmishes of 2381. It was supposed to be a small conflict over mining rights. Humans had built a colony on Kepler 44 to be without asking permission. The Saurian Empire had sent a fleet to remove them. "Tell us about this fight," Jexstar said. He sounded like he was talking to a child. Kale's mechanical hand clenched into a fist. "We came with 30 ships. The humans had 3. We thought it would be easy." He turned to look at Captain Soyoung. She met his gaze without fear. "Their ships were old and patched," Kale continued. "Our weapons were stronger, our shields were better, our ships were faster. By every measure, we should have won in one day. But you didn't," someone called out. "No," Kale said. "We didn't." He walked closer to the center of the room. "The first day we destroyed one of their ships. The crew had time to escape, but they flew their broken ship into one of ours. Both ships exploded. Many aliens made shocked sounds. Using your ship as a weapon was something only desperate pirates did. The second day, we surrounded their colony. We told them to surrender. They said no. We said we would destroy their city. They said they would rather die." Kale's voice got quieter, but somehow everyone could hear him clearly. "For 3 months, we tried to take that planet. Every day, the humans found new ways to fight us. They used mining equipment as weapons. They turned their factories into bomb-making shops. Children who should have been in school were building traps." General Mortex laughed. "You make them sound dangerous, old friend. But you won, didn't you?" Kale's good eye stared at him. "Did we? Yes, we took the planet. But look at the cost." He gestured to his missing eye and arm. "Half our fleet was destroyed or damaged. 3,000 Saurian warriors died. For one small human colony with maybe 50,000 people, war is always costly." Counselor Hexaval said. "This proves nothing. It proves everything." Kale shot back. "You want to know what I learned about humans? They don't know how to quit. When their weapons broke, they made new ones. When their ships were destroyed, they used the pieces to build bombs. When their soldiers died, their children picked up the weapons." He turned around slowly, looking at every alien in the hall. "But that's not the worst part. The worst part is that they were fighting for each other. Not for land or money or power, for each other. Every human who died protecting someone else." The hall was completely silent now. "On the last day, we finally broke through their defenses. We found their leader, a woman named Commander Park. She was wounded and could barely stand. We told her to surrender, and her people would live." Kale's voice became very soft. "She looked at me with blood running down her face and said, 'If you want to hurt my people, you'll have to kill me first.' And she meant it." Captain Soyoung's hands were clenched in her lap. She remembered Commander Park. She had been Soyoung's teacher. "We could have killed her," Kale said. "But something about the way she stood there, ready to die for people she barely knew, it made us stop. We took the planet, but we let the humans leave." He looked directly at Council Prime Jack Star. You think humans are primitive because they still fight wars. You're wrong. They're primitive because they still care about each other more than they care about themselves. Most of us learn to be civilized by forgetting how to fight. Humans learn to fight by remembering why they're worth fighting for. Kale turned and started walking back toward his seat. You want to let them join the Federation. Fine, but don't think you can control them. Don't think you can use them. And don't think you understand them. He stopped and looked back one more time. Because if you ever have to fight beside them, you'll learn what I learned. Humans don't fight to win. They fight to save everyone else. And that makes them the most dangerous creatures in the galaxy. The hall stayed quiet for a long moment after Kale sat down. Then Council Prime Jack called for the vote. The result was 847 votes in favor, 23 against. Humanity was welcomed into the Galactic Federation. That is, the aliens filed out of the hall, talking excitedly about their new members. Kale Vorthok sat alone in his chair. He watched Ambassador Taman and Captain Soyoung shake hands with other diplomats and accept congratulations. He hoped he was wrong about what would happen next, but in his heart, he knew the galaxy was about to learn the same lesson he had learned on Kepler-44b. Humans were not dangerous because they were primitive. They were dangerous because they refused to let anyone fight alone. 6 months had passed since humanity joined the Galactic Federation. In the fancy offices on Nexus Prime, the alien leaders smiled and congratulated themselves on their wise decision. The humans had been quiet and helpful. They followed rules and asked permission for everything. Maybe the old war veteran Kale Vorthok had been wrong after all. Dr. Hyanwu stood in the communications center of the human embassy. He was a tall man with kind eyes who had spent his life studying alien cultures. Today, he was watching reports from across the galaxy. His job was to make sure humans understood how to work with their new alien friends. Another trading convoy attacked. He said to his assistant, "That's the 5th one this month." The assistant, a young woman named Yonji, looked up from her computer. The Velthari raiders again. Yes, they hit the merchant ship near the Outer Rim. The Federation patrol was 3 hours away. Hyanwu shook his head. By the time help arrived, the traders were dead and the cargo was gone. This was the problem with the Outer Rim territories. They were far from the main Federation worlds, where the big alien fleets stayed safe and comfortable. Pirates and raiders attacked small ships because they knew help would come too late. Director Mina walked into the room. She was the head of Human Colonial Defense, a small organization that most aliens thought was just for show. She was short, but moved like a soldier who had seen many battles. "The Federation Council has a new job for us," she said. Her voice sounded tired. "Let me guess," Hyanwu said. "They want us to patrol the Outer Rim, right? They say it's an important mission, to protect peaceful trade. But we all know what it really means." Youngji looked confused. "What does it mean?" Mina sat down heavily in a chair. "It means they want to keep us busy and far away from important things. Send the primitive humans to chase pirates while the smart aliens handle real politics." Dr. Hyanwu studied the star charts on his screen. The Outer Rim was dangerous, but it was also where thousands of small colonies lived. Families trying to build new lives. Traders just trying to make money to feed their children. "How many ships do we have available?" he asked Captain Soyoung. "Has 12 ships ready to go," Mina replied. "Not much, but it's what we've got." 12 ships to patrol 50 star systems, Hyanwu said. "The math doesn't work." "It's not supposed to work," Mina said. "They're hoping we'll fail so they can say humans aren't ready for real responsibility." 3 days later, Captain Soyoung led her small fleet into the Outer Rim. Her ships were not beautiful like the alien vessels. They were built for work, with thick armor and powerful engines. The crews were volunteers, mostly people who had grown up on frontier colonies. Soyoung's second-in-command was Lieutenant Jae-ho, a young officer who had never seen real combat. He studied the patrol routes the Federation had given them. "Captain, these routes don't make sense," he said. "We're supposed to patrol each system once a week." "But the raiders hit 3 times a week, I know," Soyoung replied. "We're not going to follow their routes." "But the Federation said," Soyoung looked at him with eyes that had seen too much war. "The Federation isn't out here getting shot at. We are. We'll do what keeps people alive." On the bridge of her ship, the Busan, Soyoung looked at the communication reports. Dr. Hyanwu had been right to worry. The Velthari raiders were getting bolder. They had faster ships and better weapons than most merchants. "Captain," called out Communications Officer Sujin, "we're getting a distress call. Trading convoy under attack in the Kepler-438 system." Soyoung checked her navigation display. Kepler-438 was 6 hours away at maximum speed. By Federation protocol, they should request backup from the nearest patrol and wait for orders. "How long until Federation backup arrives?" she asked. 14 hours, Captain." Soyoung thought about the families on those trading ships. Mothers and fathers just trying to deliver goods to distant colonies in 14 hours. They would all be dead. "All ships, this is Captain Soyoung," she announced on the fleet communication channel. "Set course for Kepler-438, maximum speed." "Captain," Lieutenant Jae-ho said quietly, "we're supposed to wait for backup." Federation protocols say Federation protocols were written by people who never had to watch good people die. Cut him off, we're not waiting. The human fleet jumped into hyperspace. Their ships were older than the sleek Federation vessels, but their engines were powerful. They had been built by people who knew that sometimes you had to get somewhere fast or people would die. In the Kepler 438 system, the attack was almost over. 3 Velthari raider ships circled a small merchant convoy like sharks around wounded fish. The trading ships had weak shields and no weapons. Their crews sent desperate messages that no one would hear in time. Captain Velcros of the raiders watched his ships finish the attack. The Velthari were insect-like aliens with 4 arms and hard shells. They had been raiding trade routes for decades. The Federation ships were always too slow, too careful, too afraid to take risks. Another easy victory, Velcros said to his crew. The Federation weaklings will arrive tomorrow and find nothing but empty ships. Then his sensor officer made a sound of confusion. Captain, I'm reading new ships entering the system. Federation patrol, Velcros asked. He wasn't worried. Federation ships always announced themselves and demanded surrender before fighting. It gave raiders plenty of time to escape. No, Captain, unknown ships. They're not using Federation identification codes. On the Busan, Soyoung studied the tactical display. 3 raider ships, each bigger than her vessels. The smart thing would be to call for backup and try to negotiate. All ships' battle stations, she announced. We're going in. The raiders couldn't believe what they were seeing. 12 small ships were flying straight at them with no warnings, no demands to surrender, no attempts to negotiate. The ships moved in patterns the raiders had never seen before. Dr. Han Wu, monitoring the battle from his communications station, watched the tactical data with amazement. The human ships worked together like they shared one mind. When one ship was in trouble, 2 others immediately moved to help. When they attacked, they hit from 3 directions at once. The raiders had better weapons, but they couldn't predict what the humans would do next. One human ship used itself as a shield to protect a damaged merchant vessel. Another flew directly into the path of raider missiles to save a civilian transport. Captain Velcros watched in horror as his raiders were destroyed one by one. These weren't Federation ships following careful rules. These were warriors who fought like their own families were in danger. Retreat, he ordered. All ships retreat, but it was too late. The human ships had surrounded them. When the battle ended, 2 of the 3 raider ships were destroyed. The third limped away, badly damaged. Captain Soyoung's fleet had won, but the cost was high. 4 of her 12 ships were badly damaged. 17 crew members were injured. But all the merchant ships were safe, as the human fleet helped repair the trading vessels. Word of the battle spread across the galaxy. The Federation Council received reports with confusion and worry. How did they win? Council Prime Jexstar asked his advisors. The raiders had better ships and more experience. The humans didn't follow standard tactics, replied military advisor Kexton. They attacked immediately, without waiting for backup or negotiating. They used their own ships to shield the merchants. That's insane, said Councillor Heck. Using your own ship as a shield. That's not civilized warfare. On his distant world, Kale Vorthok heard the news and wasn't surprised. He had tried to warn them. Humans didn't fight like other species. They fought like every battle was personal. Back in the Outer Rim, Captain Soyoung sent a report to Federation Command. She expected to be in trouble for not following protocols. Instead, she received a message from Director Mina. Good work, the message said. Patrol assignments are being doubled. Apparently, the Federation Council is impressed with our aggressive patrol methods. Dr. Hein Wu smiled as he read the reports. The alien leaders still didn't understand. They thought the humans had won through luck or primitive aggression. They couldn't see the truth. Humans had won because they refused to let innocent people die while they waited for permission to help. The galaxy was starting to learn something new about their newest members, but this was just the beginning. The emergency alarm rang through every Federation world at the same time. On Nexus Prime, Council Prime Jexstar stared at the holographic display with 4 of his eyes, while his other 2 read urgent reports. The news was worse than anyone had imagined. How many ships, he asked his military advisor. Over 3,000, Prime Kexton replied. His voice shook with fear. The Void Reapers have returned. In the Great Council Hall, representatives from every species gathered in panic. The Void Reapers were a legend that parents used to scare children. They were nomadic warriors who traveled the galaxy in massive fleets, destroying civilizations and taking whatever they wanted. They haven't been seen for 50 years, said General Mortex from the Saurian Empire. We thought they were gone. They were waiting, replied Admiral Zenth from the Lumina Collective. Her energy form flickered with worry, building their strength. While we grew soft and comfortable, Dr. Hyan Wu watched the emergency session from the human embassy. The reports were terrifying. The Void Reapers had already destroyed 3 Federation outposts. Their ships were bigger and more powerful than anything the Federation had built. Director Minna stood beside him, reading tactical reports on her tablet. They're not just attacking military targets, she said. They're hitting civilian colonies, trade stations, even medical facilities. Why? Asked Dr. Hyan Wu. Because they can, Mina replied. It's psychological warfare. They want everyone to be afraid. The Federation's three main military powers prepared for war. The Saurian Empire had the most ships. The Crystalline Z had the strongest weapons. The energy-based Lumina Collective had the fastest vessels. Together, they should have been able to stop any enemy, but the first battle was a disaster. Commander Dong Hian watched the tactical reports from his flagship, the Soul. The Federation fleet had met the Void Reapers near the Altair system. It should have been an easy victory. The Federation had more ships and better technology. Instead, they were destroyed. The Reapers don't fight like us, reported Captain Soyoung from her position in the Outer Rim. They don't use formations or tactics. They just attack from all directions at once, like wild animals, said Lieutenant Jeho. No, Soyoung corrected him. Animals are predictable. These Reapers fight like they don't care if they die, as long as they take you with them. Within 2 weeks, 3 more Federation worlds had fallen. Millions of people were dead or missing. The great civilizations that had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years were running away from an enemy they didn't understand. Council Prime Jexstar called for an emergency meeting. Representatives from every member species came to Nexus Prime. Fear filled the air like a bad smell. We need every ship and every warrior, Jexstar announced. All member species must contribute to our defense. Most species promised to send small fleets of their oldest ships. They wanted to keep their best vessels safe at home. When it came time for humanity to respond, everyone expected the same thing. Ambassador Taman stood up to speak. He was older now, with gray in his hair. From the stress of representing his species in a hostile galaxy, humanity will send what we can, he said simply. The aliens nodded and moved on to other business. Humans were still new to space warfare. They probably had 20 or 30 ships at most. Every little bit would help. 3 days later, Commander Dong Hian arrived at the Federation staging area with the largest human fleet anyone had ever seen. 200 ships filled the space around the rally point. Other species stopped what they were doing to stare. Where did they get so many ships? Whispered a Saurian captain. The human fleet was strange to look at. Some ships were military vessels, painted gray and bristling with weapons, but many others looked like they had been something else before. Mining ships with guns welded to their HULs, cargo haulers converted into missile platforms, even passenger liners with armor plates bolted over their windows. Admiral Zenth from the Lumina Collective approached Commander Dong Hian's flagship. Human Commander, she transmitted. Many of your vessels appear to be civilian craft. Are you sure they're ready for battle? Dong Hian smiled. Admiral, on human worlds, every ship is ready for battle if people need protecting. Scientist Jenna stood in the strategy room with commanders from every species. She was young for such an important meeting, but her ideas had helped win battles in the Outer Rim. Now she faced the greatest military minds in the galaxy. The Reapers are winning because we're fighting their kind of war, she explained. They want big battles where they can use their superior firepower. We need to change the rules. General Mortex laughed. Young human, this is not a game. There are rules to galactic warfare. Yes, Janna replied, and the Reapers are breaking all of them, so should we. She activated a holographic display showing the galaxy. Red dots marked Reaper fleets. Blue dots showed Federation forces. We don't attack their main fleets, Gina continued. We attack everything else. Their supply ships, their communication relays, their fuel depots. We make them fight 100 small battles instead of one big one. Admiral Zenth flickered with concern. That's guerrilla warfare. Civilized species don't fight that way. Civilized species are losing, Commander Dong Hian said quietly. Maybe it's time to try being uncivilized. The alien commanders argued for hours. Guerrilla warfare was something savages did. It wasn't honorable. It wasn't proper. It wasn't the way things were done. Finally, Council Prime Jexstar made the decision. We have lost 4 worlds and 60% of our fleet, he said. Honor and proper tactics have gotten us nothing but dead people. We will try the human plan. As the meeting ended, the alien commanders filed out, still complaining about human tactics. Only Kale Vorthok remained behind. The old Saurian veteran looked at Gina with his one good eye. You know what you're asking them to do, he said. I'm asking them to win, Gina replied. No, Kale said. You're asking them to become like humans, to fight for something more important than their own pride. Yenna looked at the star map, where red dots showed the advancing Reaper fleets. Is that so bad? Kale was quiet for the moment for them. It will be the hardest thing they've ever done. For the galaxy, he paused. It might be the only thing that saves us. The Federation fleet prepared to implement Jinna's plan. Alien crews who had learned warfare from textbooks tried to understand human tactics. Ships that had been built for glory prepared for dirty, dangerous work. Engineer Wu Jin worked 20 hours a day converting civilian vessels into weapons of war. Mining charges became ship-killer missiles. Industrial fabricators started producing swarms of attack drones. Cargo containers were filled with explosives and turned into space mines. This is insane, said a Zeth engineer, watching humans weld armor plates onto a passenger liner. Maybe, replied Wu Jin, but insane might be what we need right now. The Void Reapers had conquered dozens of species by being the most violent, most ruthless warriors in the galaxy. They were about to learn what happened when they fought humans who had decided that sometimes, to save everyone else, you had to become something terrible. The real war was about to begin. Admiral Subin stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Inchin, watching the tactical display with cold eyes. 3 months had passed since the Federation began using human tactics against the Void Reapers. The galaxy was learning to fight a new kind of war. Target acquired, reported her weapons officer. Reaper supply convoy, 12 ships, any escorts? Subin asked. 2 heavy cruisers. Admiral Subin smiled, but it wasn't a happy expression. Only 2. They're getting careless. Begin the attack. The human fleet struck from 3 directions at once. The Reaper escorts never had a chance to call for help. Within minutes, the supply ships were destroyed and the convoy's food, fuel, and ammunition was scattered in the void of space. Jump. Coordinates laid in. Called the navigation officer. Execute. Subin ordered. Let's be gone before their friends arrive. This was the new way of fighting. Hit fast, hit hard, and disappear before the enemy could respond. The Void Reapers had powerful battle fleets, but they needed supplies just like everyone else. Without food and fuel, even the strongest warriors became helpless. On the Reaper flagship Bonecrusher, Warlord Krexmoth stared at reports with growing anger. His species was tall and strong, with gray skin and 4 arms that ended in claws. They had conquered entire galaxies through brute force and terror, but these humans fought differently than any enemy he had faced. Another supply convoy destroyed, reported his second-in-command, Reaper Lord Vaktul. That's the 15th one this month. How Krexmoth demanded. Our convoys are protected. The humans don't attack our main fleets, Vaktul explained. They wait until our ships are spread out, then strike where we're weakest. Krexmoth smashed his fist on the command console. Cowards. Why won't they fight us properly? But the humans weren't being cowards. They were being smart. Engineer Wu Jin had turned human ingenuity into a weapon of war. Every day he invented new ways to fight. Old mining charges became ship killers that could crack the hull of a Reaper battleship. Industrial fabricators worked around the clock, producing thousands of small attack drones that swarmed enemy vessels like angry insects. We need more missile launchers, reported Captain Jihan from the converted cargo ship Mokpo. Use the cargo bay doors, Wu Jin replied over the radio. Mount the launchers there. When you fire, open the doors and let them fly. But that will expose the cargo bay to vacuum, Jihan protested. Then don't keep anything important in the cargo bay, Wu Jin said. Fill it with spare missiles instead. This was how humans thought about war. Every ship could be modified. Every tool could become a weapon. Every problem had a solution. If you were willing to try something new. The alien crews who fought alongside humans were amazed and terrified by what they saw. Saurian engineers watched humans turn passenger ships into missile platforms. Zeeth warriors saw humans use their own damaged vessels as kinetic weapons, ramming Reaper ships at high speed. They're insane, whispered a Luminar officer after watching a human crew volunteer for a suicide mission. No, replied his commander. They're desperate. And desperate humans are the most dangerous creatures in the galaxy. Reaper Lord Vaktul decided to try a different approach. His raiders captured a human patrol ship near the Vega system. The crew of 12 was brought to his interrogation chamber aboard the Bloodfang. Vaktul had broken thousands of prisoners, from dozens of species. Fear was a universal language. Pain was even more universal, but the humans confused him. Tell me about your fleet positions, he demanded from the first prisoner, Lieutenant Minsu. I can't do that, Minsu replied calmly. Vaktul activated the pain device. Electric energy coursed through the human's body. Most species would beg for mercy after 10 seconds, Minsu screamed. But when the pain stopped, he looked up at Vaktul with steady eyes. I can't do that, he repeated. After 6 hours, Vaktul gave up on torture. The humans wouldn't break, but something strange happened when he brought in the second prisoner. Minsu, are you okay? Asked the new prisoner, Sergeant Hyjin. I'm fine, Minsu replied. Don't tell them anything. I won't, Hyjin promised. This confused Vaktul. Most species tried to save themselves by betraying their comrades, but these humans seemed more worried about each other than about their own pain. By the end of the day, something incredible had happened. That human prisoners were sharing information freely, not with their captors, but with each other. They talked about fleet movements, tactical plans, and supply routes. They did it openly, in front of their Reaper guards. Why are you telling each other these things? Vaktul demanded. Sergeant Hyjin looked at him like he was stupid. Because we trust each other. But I can hear everything you're saying. So what? Replied Lieutenant Minsu. By the time you figure out what our plans mean, we'll have changed them. Our commanders know we're captured. They'll adapt. This was the truth that the Void Reapers couldn't understand. Human tactics worked, because humans trusted each other completely. When a plan failed, they made a new one. When a ship was lost, 3 more took its place. When a crew was captured, their friends found new ways to fight. Admiral Subin received the reports about the captured patrol crew. She felt angry and sad, but not surprised. War meant losing people you cared about. Change all patrol routes, she ordered. Move the supply depot from Kepler 452 to Wall 359, and send a message to all ships. Lieutenant Minsu's crew is considered heroes of the Federation. Should we attempt a rescue mission? Asked her aide. Subin was quiet for a moment. No, they knew the risks when they volunteered. The best way to honor them is to win this war. This was another thing that confused the Reapers. When humans lost ships or crews, they didn't waste time on revenge. They just fought harder and smarter. Engineer Wu Jin's latest invention was the most ambitious yet. He had figured out how to turn human cargo ships into massive kinetic weapons. The ships would accelerate to maximum speed, then the crew would escape in small pods just before impact. You want us to use our ships as bullets? Asked Captain Yuna from the freighter. Olsen, big bullets, Wu Jin confirmed. Really big bullets, and you think this will work? Physics says it will work, Wu Jin replied. A cargo ship moving at 0.7 light speed has more kinetic energy than a nuclear bomb. Captain Yuna looked at her crew. They were merchants and traders, not soldiers. But they had families on worlds that the Reapers wanted to destroy. When do we start? She asked. The human fleet grew stronger every day, but not because they were getting new ships. They grew stronger because they were learning to fight like humans with creativity, determination, and absolute trust in each other. The Void Reapers still had bigger fleets and better weapons, but they were fighting an enemy they couldn't understand. Every time they thought they had figured out human tactics, the humans changed their approach. Warlord Krexmoth looked at the latest battle reports and felt something he had never experienced before: doubt. His forces still controlled most of the territory they had conquered. His fleets were still powerful, but the humans were everywhere, striking like ghosts and disappearing into the dark. How many ships have we lost to supply raids? He asked. Vaktul 237 Warlord, plus 43 communication relays and 18 fuel depots. And how many human ships have we destroyed? Vaktul was quiet for a moment. 120, Warlord. Krexmoth felt his anger rising. We're losing more ships than they are. Yes, Warlord. But our ships are bigger and more powerful. Size doesn't matter if you're dead, Krexmoth snarled. These humans are making us look like fools. The truth was worse than he knew. The human tactics were spreading to other Federation species. Saurian ships had started using hit-and-run attacks. Zeeth vessels were converting civilian craft into weapons. Even the peaceful Lumina Collective was learning to fight dirty. The galaxy was changing. Species that had fought formal, civilized wars for thousands of years were learning to fight like humans with everything they had, for everything they loved. The Void Reapers had wanted to conquer a soft, comfortable galaxy. Instead, it had awakened something they didn't understand and couldn't defeat. They had taught the galaxy to fight like humans, and that was a mistake they would never recover from. The final battle would be fought above Nexus Prime, the capital world of the Galactic Federation. 2 billion people lived on the planet below, representing every species in the galaxy. If it fell, the Federation would collapse and the Void Reapers would rule everything. Admiral Subin stood in the command center of the Inch, watching the largest space battle in galactic history unfold around her. The Federation had gathered every remaining ship for this final stand. Human vessels fought alongside Saurian battleships, Zeth crystal cruisers, and Lumina energy forms. Reaper flagship identified, reported her tactical officer. The Bone Crusher, bearing 27 Mark IV. Subin could see it on the main display. Warlord Krexmoth's massive ship was bigger than some space stations. It bristled with weapons, and was surrounded by hundreds of smaller Reaper vessels. Sir, called out Communications Officer Yuzhin, we're receiving a transmission from the Reaper flagship. Put it on screen, Subin ordered. Warlord Krexmoth's grey face appeared on the display. His 4 arms were crossed, and his eyes burned with hatred. Human commander, he growled. You have fought well, but this ends now. Surrender, and I will allow your people to live as slaves. Refuse, and I will turn your homeworld into ash. Subin looked at the alien warlord with calm eyes. Counteroffer, she said. You leave our galaxy now, and we'll let you keep your lives. Krexmoth laughed, a sound like breaking glass. You have 300 ships, I have 1,000. You are outnumbered 3 to 1. Numbers don't win wars, Subin replied. People do. The transmission ended. Around the Inchin, the Federation fleet prepared for the final battle. But something was wrong. Subin's sensors detected a massive energy buildup from the Reaper flagship. Admiral, called out Science Officer Taesung. The enemy ship is charging. Some kind of weapon. Energy readings are off the charts. What kind of weapon? Planet killer, Admiral. If they fire that thing at Nexus Prime. Subin understood. Krexmoth wasn't just trying to win the battle. He was going to destroy the entire planet out of spite. 2 billion innocent people would die to satisfy one alien's wounded pride. The Federation fleet was spread out across the system, fighting dozens of smaller battles. There wasn't time to coordinate a proper attack on the Reaper flagship. By the time they could organize their forces, the planet killer would be ready to fire. Subin made a decision that would be remembered, for as long as humans traveled the stars. All human ships. This is Admiral Subin, she announced on the fleet. Communication channel. The enemy is preparing to destroy Nexus Prime. We're going to stop them. How, Admiral? Asked Captain Soyoung from her ship the Busan. We're going to ram the flagship, Subin said simply. All of us at the same time. Silence filled the communication channel. Everyone understood what she was asking. It was a suicide mission. The Reaper flagship was too big and too well defended that the attacking ships would be destroyed before we could reach their target. Then Captain Soyoung's voice came through the speakers. The Busan Volunteers, Admiral the Seoul Volunteers, added Commander Dong Haein, the Mokpo Volunteers, called Captain G-Hun. One by one, every human ship volunteered for the suicide attack. 50,000 crew members, ready to die to save people they had never met. But then something incredible happened. The Granite Fist Volunteers announced a Saurian captain. The Crystal Blade Volunteers added a Zeth commander. The Lightbearer Volunteers transmitted a Lumina Collective. Admiral Subin watched her tactical display in amazement. Ships from every Federation species were joining the attack. The galaxy's greatest civilizations, species that had spent thousands of years avoiding risk and protecting themselves, were volunteering to die alongside the humans. Why? She whispered. The answer came from an unexpected source. On the bridge of the Saurian ship Granite Fist, Old Kale Vorthok spoke into his communication unit. Because you taught us something, humans, he said. You taught us that some things are worth dying for. The combined Federation fleet, over 200 ships, turned toward the Reaper flagship. They accelerated to maximum speed, ready to ram the enemy vessel and destroy the planet killer weapon, even if it meant their own destruction. Warlord Krexmuth watched the approaching ships with disbelief. They're all coming, he said to Vaktul. Every ship in their fleet. Shall we target them with our main weapons? Vaktul asked. Yes, destroy them all. The Reaper flagship opened fire with every weapon it had. Space filled with energy beams and missile trails. The first wave of Federation ships was torn apart by the massive firepower, but more ships kept coming. The Busan was hit and began to burn, but Captain Soyoung kept flying toward the target. The Seoul lost its engines but continued on momentum alone. The crystal blade shattered into pieces, but its fragments continued toward the Reaper ship. They're not stopping, Vaktul said with growing fear. Why aren't they stopping? Because they're humans, Krexmuth snarled, and humans don't know when to quit. The first ships reached the Reaper flagship. The Granite Fist smashed into the port side, its Saurian crew shouting battle cries as they died. The Lightbearer struck the starboard weapons array, its energy form exploding in a blast of pure light. Then the Inchin hit the center of the flagship, exactly where the planet killer weapon was located. Admiral Subin's last words were transmitted across the galaxy. For everyone who can't fight for themselves, the explosion lit up the entire star system. The Reaper flagship broke apart, its planet killer weapon destroyed. Warlord Krexmoth died in the blast, along with most of his command staff. The remaining Reaper ships, leaderless and demoralized, began to retreat. The great Void Reaper fleet that had terrorized the galaxy was broken, but the cost was terrible. 90% of the Federation fleet was gone. Over 50,000 people had died in the final attack, including Admiral Subin and most of the human command structure. On Nexus Prime, Council Prime Jexter stood in the ruins of the Council chamber, which had been damaged by falling debris from the space battle. He was alive, along with 2 billion other people, because humans and their allies had chosen to die for them. Dr. Hyunwoo was one of the few human leaders who survived. He had been on the planet during the battle, coordinating refugee evacuations. Now he stood among the wreckage, trying to process what had happened. Admiral Subin's final transmission is being broadcast across the galaxy, reported his aide UNG. Every species is hearing her last words. What will we do now? Asked a young Saurian diplomat. Most of our fleets are gone. Our greatest heroes are dead. Dr. Hyunwoo looked up at the sky, where the debris of the battle still glowed like falling stars. We rebuild, he said. We honor the dead by taking care of the living. 3 days later, something happened that shocked the galaxy. The first refugee ships arrived at human colonies, carrying survivors from worlds the Reapers had attacked. But these weren't just human refugees. They were Void Reapers, families of the warriors who had been killed in the war, children and elderly, aliens who had been left behind when the Reaper fleets retreated. They came to human worlds because they had nowhere else to go. The galaxy expected humans to turn them away, or worse. These were the people whose warriors had tried to destroy everything humans cared about. Instead, Dr. Hyunwoo personally welcomed the first refugee ship at the space station above New Seoul. Why are you helping us? Asked an elderly Reaper female, holding a child who couldn't understand why her world was gone. Dr. Hyunwoo knelt down to the child's level. Because someone has to, he said gently. And because you're not responsible for what your warriors did. The news spread across the galaxy. Humans were not just helping their former enemies, they were treating them like family. Human families adopted Reaper children who had lost their parents. Human doctors worked around the clock to treat wounded Reaper civilians. Human engineers, who helped build new homes for people who had lost everything. Council Prime Jexter visited the refugee camps, 6 months later, he found Dr. Hyanwu working in a medical tent, treating a young Reaper who had been injured in the evacuation. "I don't understand," Jexstar said. "These people's armies tried to destroy you. Why do you help them?" Dr. Hyanwu finished bandaging the child's arm before answering. "Because this is what we fought for," he said. "Not to destroy our enemies, but to protect everyone who needs protecting." The child looked up at both of them with large, innocent eyes. "Are you the good humans my grandmother told me about?" she asked Dr. Hyanwu. "We're just humans," he replied, trying to do the right thing. In the years that followed, the galaxy was rebuilt, stronger than before. The Federation military was reorganized with humans in command positions, not because they had demanded it, but because other species insisted on it. The Void Reapers who had survived the war were offered a choice. They could leave the galaxy and never return, or they could stay and help rebuild what their armies had destroyed. Most chose to stay. Old Kale Vorthok, now serving as the Federation's new military advisor, stood in the memorial hall on Nexus Prime. The walls were covered with the names of everyone who had died in the war. Human names were mixed with Saurian, Zeeth, Lumina, and even some Void Reapers who had switched sides. "Were you wrong?" Dr. Hyanwu asked.